we can work together, we can get to know each other, we can socialize. And in addition to the audio video platforms like we're using for this conference, there are also some pretty amazing three-dimensional spaces, ones that feel almost like being there. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different than the usual presentations, and we're going to take you on a trip into the immersive 3D geospace of Second Life. In this space, we can do and experience many things that we would do in the physical world, and some things we can't, such as flying and teleporting. We can also disappear distance in these kinds of spaces. And that means that we can locate things close to one another that would be far away from each other in the physical world. Regarding coastal ecosystems, this makes it easier to recognize each ecosystem's relationship to every other literal ecosystems. Systems, interdependent within systems within systems. So we are about ready to go. In preparation, because the video takes a larger bandwidth, we would ask that people during the tour turn off their video, and then when the tour is open, we'd ask people to turn video and microphone back on again so that we can talk about it. Here we are now in Second Life at the Abyss Observatory. In this space, I go by the name of Delia Lake. My colleagues, Jan Luria and Akasha, and I have been taking a short break from our work as curators here, and we've been relaxing in the sun. It's a pleasant day here on the coastal tundra of the near Arctic, very unlike July, when the temperatures in the region soared to an unthinkable 32 degrees centigrade for days. Jan and I have been watching the polar bear, and we're hoping it can hunt a meal. It looks much too thin for late summer, and it looks unsteady on that small ice floe. Warming climate is changing the character of all the coastal tundra. Will the polar bear have to give up the ice? Will it go on land? Will it compete with the brown bears, with the grizzlies? Let's take a look at the grizzlies up there. Oh, that mom and cub look pretty healthy. They're chubby, just as they should be at this time of year. But it's not just the competition from the species that are already here. There are, because of climate change, it's warming, and other species are moving in from the south. Beavers are one of those examples. There's a red fox, looks like it's hunting a mouse. But over here, we'll find a beaver pond and dam. The beavers are the engineers of the animal kingdom, and they're redesigning this landscape. Their dams are adding ponds that further encourage the melting of the permafrost in the tundra. And because that changed the landscape considerably. It is encouraging migration of lake and marsh loving plants and animals. I guess it's time to get back into the water, though, and continuing my survey of the cold water reefs that are off here. So let me get my mask down, and Akasha and I are going to go swimming. The water's chilly, even though I have a wetsuit on. I'm probably going to be a little bit cold, but you won't be. So here we go. And down we are. We're now at a cold water coral reef. Look around, you'll see sperm whales. We passed a narwhal and a beluga, but there's lots of life here in the coral reef too. Notice that these corals are pale in color, and that's because they don't host the symbiotic algae found in tropical corals. These cold water algae get their nourishment directly from the plankton and the nutrient-rich upwelling of cold water along the continental shelves instead of by photosynthesis. Along with fish and corals, you'll see red king crabs. Now, those are native to some of these kinds of areas, but not all. In a number of areas, the coast of Norway, for instance, they are an introduced invasive species, but they're economically valuable. So one of the things in the management of the coastal ecosystems today is how do you balance that out? If you have something that is economically valuable, but it is not native, do you let it stay or do you remove it? We also have starfish, sponges, worms, and a whole lot more. But this is a very fragile marine habitat. And dangerously today, some people want to drill for oil and gas right here. Let's see what else we can find. Let's take a little swim south from here. Following the sperm whales. And right around the corner down a little bit, there's a kelp forest. Kelp are found throughout the temperate oceans and even extending some in the polar regions. And although this tall greenery looks a lot like trees, it's actually brown macroalgae. Right in front of me are sunflower starfish. And that's really lucky. That's lucky because off to my right, if you see along the shelf right on the edge there, there's some purple sea urchins. And the urchins will feast on the kelp. A little in front, do I spot a swimming? I do. Right up there, there's an otter, sea otter. And that's really helpful because sea otters also love the urchins. Favorite meal. And if we don't have this kind of a balance, then the sea urchins would just wipe out this stand of kelp, and you'd have nothing but a barrens here. But there are, right now, the way it is, there are so many fish. You see bluefish and mackerel. You see different starfish. You see sponges. Worms, crab, lobster. But kelp forests are under great threat, and not only from overfishing. They're also under threat from climate change. And because the CO2 from the atmosphere is absorbed into the oceans, it acidifies the water and makes it very difficult for the kelp to survive. If that were not enough, though, people are increasing their proposals to harvest kelp, both for food and to use as biofuel. On shore here, and we're going to pop out of the water for a minute and look up here. Right on shore, above the kelp forest, we have a temperate rainforest. And I often sit here quietly on the log and watch the wildlife. It's peaceful here. Temperate rainforests are some of the rarest, least explored, least understood areas and most endangered habitats on Earth. They're really beautiful places. They're filled with thick undergrowth of ferns and mosses and lichens, bushes, brambles, and they all thrive on the damp, nutrient-rich, decayed or organic matter. The canopy of ancient trees includes the tallest species in the world. Rainforests, both tropical and temperate, are the lungs of the earth. This particular forest is modeled after the Pacific coast areas of coastal redwoods and up north a little bit along the Canadian shore, Sitka spruce. Once these were extensive, but today temperate rainforests can be found in only a few regions of the world, little pockets, Japan, Scotland, a little bit on the east coast of Russia, Tasmania, the west coast of North America. But as interface zones between land and ocean, temperate rainforests are important watersheds and play a key role in the water cycle. They have up to upwards of 2 meters of rainfall a year. The biomass of these complex temperate environments is 2 to 3 times higher than the biomass of comparable tropical rainforests. But these magnificent stands of trees are being clear cut, and they're being cut for single-use, inexpensive wood products, and even in some places for toilet paper. So let's continue our tour here. We're going to take a little walk. We're going to walk down south along the coast a bit. And we're going to come to a beach area. This beach is littered with old fishing nets and plastic trash. Human waste is the scourge of coastal areas worldwide, with discarded nets and snaring fish, birds, turtles, Marine animals alike, tons of plastic degrade in small sizes, small enough that marine creatures mistake the plastic for food, and with stomachs full of indigestible plastic, they can die of starvation. Let's see if we can find a somewhat cleaner, nicer beach. Crawl over the rocks here. Boy, I've done this a lot in the physical world. All right, so here we are on a typical North Atlantic beach. The eastern north of the North America could be England or Norway or the northern Pacific in any country. Does it look familiar to you? It is time to go back in the water, though. So if we step up here, we're going to be in an entirely different ecosystem. Going down, we find ourselves on an ocean bank. There are major ocean banks around the world, and they're constituted by shoals and plateaus with nutrient-rich currents that make them prime marine nurseries and fishing grounds for large numbers of species, and particularly commercially valuable fish, such as herring, haddock, cod. These high-value economic resources provide food and livelihoods for millions of people. And so they tend to be overfished. Sometimes they're even trawled. When the overfished population crashes, though, it puts the entire ecosystem at risk. While this is designed to represent different global locations, this virtual habitat is modeled after Georges Bank and Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary in the Northwest Atlantic off the east coast of North America. I'm going to swim along just a little bit, and we're going to get out of examine the eelgrass for a minute, see if there are any fish eggs. There are scallops and clams and oysters, and I bet there are a lot of fish eggs attached there. But on the coast here again is another ecosystem of value. And this one will pop up onto the promontory here. This one is a maritime oak and holly forest. Maritime oak and holly forests are one of the specialty salt-tolerant forests that inhabit barrier islands and near coastal areas, where harsh winds are the rule, probably the winds. These endangered forests are important land stabilizers. They're frequently felled, though, for development, mostly for resource and vacancy. While holly is an important understory component, other shrubs such as blueberries, huckleberries, wild raspberries, laurels, and bayberries are found here too. In addition to oaks, the canopy may be loblolly pines, birches, beeches, hornbeams, tupelo. And in different parts of the world, you're going to have different trees that function or in the same way. You'll find lots of animals here too: deer, raccoon, red fox, mice, rabbits, moles, and lots of birds and insects call this habitat home. It'd be nice to sit and read here, but I think we're going to dive off into the waves again. See if I can pass through the trees here. The holly's pretty sharp. I don't want to get caught on the holly. Sneak through. Right in. And let's keep swimming. We are swimming south. Marathon swimming this is. Here we go. Oh my, look ahead. We're coming to a tropical coral reef. Tropical coral reefs are important cornerstones of marine life. These structures, produced by millions of living organisms, provide critical protective shallow ocean habitats and spawning areas for thousands of other marine creatures, fish, mollusks, crabs, starfish among them. Oh, there's a pilot whale, a green turtle, manta ray. Oh, and here comes the ever curious moray eels. You think of those as reclusive, but not this one. These slow growing corals, though, are built on eons old skeletal foundations of the past. And colonies of coral reefs grow offshore as fringe reefs and along continental shelves as barrier reefs. Tropical corals live in nutrient recycling and symbiotic relationships with algae that they host and that give them their bright colors and supply them with oxygen. Corals, in return, provide compounds algae need for photosynthesis. But when under significant stress from high temperatures and higher acidity water, the corals may expel their algae and putting the very life of these corals at risk. Disturbingly, recently we've found that with the warmer seas, previously unknown algae are moving into the coral reefs in some areas, particularly in Hawaii, and blanketing some of the coral reefs so that it's blocking the sunlight almost entirely. All around the world, coral reefs are in mortal danger from climate change, from disease, and from pollution. Here, as in many areas where you have desired ecotourism, we have a transparent walking tube so that you have the possibility of not swimming, but actually walking through and seeing everything around. So I'm going to take this now. Oh, I'm going to push that little moray out of the way. And as I walk up the ramp, I'm going to pass a mola mola, an ocean sunfish, and it's hanging out there right where it can eat all of those moon jellyfish, its most favorite food in the world. Jan, by the way, built this tube for us. And at the top here, we come into a mangrove forest. Mangrove forests are found in on 5 of the 7 continents on Earth. They're adapted to growing in brackish waters where salt and fresh water mix. The plants and animals of the mangrove forest form transition areas. These evergreen tropical trees, many different versions, grow in low oxygen soils and extract fresh water from salt water through their roots and leaves. The dense root system, the mangroves act as buffers to protect coastal areas against storm surges, slowing coastal erosion and holding composting organic material that nourish many different life forms. Over to my left here, I'm not going to go over there. There's a crocodile, but there's another crocodile swimming. I'm definitely not going over there. But that's not the only big predator here. Because when I was here, yeah, it's still there. Look, there right in front of me now is a tiger. Tigers also live in mangrove forests, and tigers swim. There are also snakes, crabs, climbing tree crabs, even snails, spiders, birds, deer, raccoon, more otters, and shrimp. So right where I'm standing here, if you look down into this shallow water area, you'll see shrimp. And that's important because people are tearing out the mangrove swamps, forests, not only for housing, but they are tearing them out to build massive commercial shrimp farms. Not surprisingly, those human constructions provide neither nurturing wildlife habitats nor buffers against predictable ravages of nature in this time of real climate weirding. So thank you for your visiting with us on our tour today. The coastal ecosystems that we visited are representative and generalized rather than detailed. While not all of them may be found, all of the things living in these may be found together, all of the life depicted in each habitat live under conditions found in those kinds of physical world locations. Each of these stressed habitats are critically important in our effort to stem human-caused aspects of climate change and to ensure human sustainability. Virtual experiences like this are not substitutes for visiting places in the physical world. However, they are very effective for stimulating interest, curiosity, and the motivation to learn more. So, as an option for engaging people who are decision makers, who are influential and need to be part of the decisions in coastal ecosystem management, this is one option for getting people to have a taste of what it is actually like in these ecosystems. So now we would love to hear from you. So please turn your cameras and microphones back on and talk with us. What was your experience of this today?
Oh, thank you, Doctor. Thank you for a wonderful session.
What questions did this tour raise for you? And what other thoughts and questions and comments do you have?
Anyone are having any questions regarding her session? You may carry on with your questions, please.
Also, I'm going to put my email in here because if people would like to try this immersive experience, please contact us and come visit. Yes.
Doctor, could you please share your email at our chat box once again, please? Hello, Dr. Linda. Am I audible you? Dr. Linda, am I audible you? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, doctor, could you please share your email address once again at our chat box, please?
I am doing that right now. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me, doctor? I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you for a nice presentation. Do you consider at any point one species migrating from one part of the globe to another where we maybe previously haven't witnessed that? Some people might call that invasive. Would you ever point to a circumstance where you would call that a good thing?
I think it can be. I'm personally not an absolutist on this. I mean, evolutionary history has had species migrate all around the globe. I think one of the critical things, though, is the dynamic balance. So if you have a species that has no predators and the entire ecosystem gets out of balance, then it's a big problem.
I see. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that you can do in this kind of an immersive three-dimensional platform like we are using is that you can have these kinds of conversations by changing the environment. This isn't fixed. This is a creator-driven environment and habitats. So if you wanted to explore with a group of people in conversation with examples what it would be like if you did introduce species that don't have predators or too many of one with the climate change or with the storms that are coming and wiping out whole swaths of areas. And you can do that and show what the possibilities are. I tell you, as an example, one of the things that I did a number of years ago, not at this site, but at a different site, was talking about the rise in sea level. And people weren't quite getting it, what it would be like. And so I had the ability to actually raise the water with the people in their avatar representations standing there. So, you really can, it really is a very versatile medium.
Yeah, I ask the question because sometimes species don't migrate, but their behavior changes. So
That's,
in one case, using sea otters, the southern sea otter as an example, there's pretty good evidence that shows that they actually hauled out on the beach and they didn't necessarily float around the kelp beds before hunting. And basically, the hunters would club them on the beach, and the ones that went to sea were the ones that adapted and survived. And but their metabolism didn't change, or let's just say um, their metabolism skyrocketed because they don't have blubber and they have fur, and therefore they needed to remove about 90% of their food source. In this case, citing abalone. So that can lead
yes,
to a great decimation in other species such as abalone. So that's not an invasive animal, but its behaviors change from human presence.
yes.
So that's where, but the upside of that is they eat purple sea urchin barons, right? So
Mhm.
that's the upside of it. So
Yeah,
it's a complicated question, really.
it's a very complicated question. And from my perspective, I think it's very important to take a systems approach to all of this. and to consider, because of the human impact, to consider these as all socio-ecological systems, because we humans have an effect all around the coast, all around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Having any more questions regarding our session? Okay. Okay, thank you, Linda. Thank you for the
Thank you
wonderful
very much,
demonstration.
Thank
everyone.
you.
We